Astha, your voice is not coming. There's some issue. Still, she's joining. Let's start.
Am I audible to you guys now?
Yeah, now.
Alright. We cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. And today's youth does and must understand that menstrual blood is the only source of blood which is not induced with violence, and yet it disgusts people the most. Good morning, one and all. Today I asked Thamunga and Megha Agarwal on the behalf of Project Vedana, Sarkari School NGO, welcome you all to the panel number 5 of the conference, Unwrapping the Conversation Around Menstruation. The topic for this panel is role of youth in changing the conversation around menstruation. Now I would like Neha to present the welcome address.
Good afternoon, everyone present. I welcome you all to the National Virtual Conference organized by Project Vedana of Sarkari School.in and We Citizens Foundation. It is my honor to welcome all the anti speakers, panelists from all across the country and from different walks of life who have gathered here gather here to share their knowledge and great experience with us. The theme of our conference is unwrapping the conversation around menstruation. The main focus of our conference is spread awareness about menstruation by eradicating the age-old myths and stigmas attached to it, and initiating a conversation to normalize talking about menstruation. The title of the panel is Role of Youth in Changing the Conversation Around Menstruation. Our esteemed panelists will shed light on this topic. We will discuss the mindset of our youth regarding menstruation, what are crucial roles they play regarding menstruation cycle, and how an awareness conversation like this play an important role in their life. Thank you again for taking your valuable time and being a part of this important initiating panel discussion. I hope everyone who is with us today and is a part of our conversation come off being inspired and more knowledgeable on this topic. Now I request the host to take over the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Neha, for enlightening us about the session. Now, let us invite our first guest, Drishti Makijan. Drishti Makijani is a 20-year-old changing the world one period at a time. She is the founder of Project Vedana, a CS student, Kathak dancer, and a visual artist. She has a zest for food, life, and basically anything that challenges her. She is a go getter by heart and, most importantly, a sucker for pizza and happy endings. So, Drishti, I would now request you to say a few words.
First of all, thank you so much for having me on the panel today. It is indeed an honor to be amongst all of you and being a part of this entire initiative. And I think the agenda for the day is unwrapping the conversation around menstruation. And I think we're doing that really well with such a beautiful and a diverse panel. Um, it is so strange that at any given point in time, you have about 800 million menstruators menstruating. This is a reminder also for all of us to use inclusive terms, as there are non binary individuals who also menstruate, right? And even though we have so many people menstruating at any given point in time, conversations around menstruation are always hushed and happen under the wraps. So much so that when we all of us gather on platforms like this or on any platform where we go out and talk about menstrual health, menstrual literacy or sex education for that matter, we're always sort of showered with compliments such as, oh, that was really brave. How bold of you to do that. But I would like to humbly dissent because it is as normal to talk about all of this as it is to have. There are menstruators who menstruate every single month. So why is talking about something so normal such a big deal? I'm sorry, it's nowhere close to being brave or bold. It is just embracing our own selves and embracing people around us. Um, when we look at the current landscape of menstruation in our country today, it is a result of years of religious dogmatization and a patriarchal mindset, per se. And when you have to deal with years of misinformation, miscommunication, lack of information, I think youth becomes very, very important because we are the people who have a vision for the future and have the learnings from the past. We understand what it was like to be here, and we have a vision for what is it that we want to build, which is why we the youth become so very important. And I think it also becomes very important to come and operate from a space of empathy and love when we're sort of demolishing and waging practically a war against all these social taboos and stigmas, right? And when we talk about menstrual hygiene, everyone around us will talk about products that they're doing. Definitely, we're all building great products. We're all building and creating systems where we can make menstrual hygiene products easily accessible to everyone. But I think when we're making products available, the problem goes actually way beyond accessibility and affordability. The problem, goes down to awareness and conversation. And I would like to, sort of narrate an anecdote that happened with us during the days of foundation of Project Vedana when we were bringing this up. One of the field visits I was having, and there was this conversation I was having with a middle-aged lady. She was 35 years old, had two children, and we were talking. And I asked her, ki, menstruation kya hota hai? General conversation. And during that conversation, something very shocking came out. The fact that she did not know that childbirth and menstruation were connected processes. I think that was the realizing moment that we needed to go back to the root cause and we need to start with conversation. So, as a team, we sort of readjusted our sales, readjusted our focus. We created and curated 17 plus workshops and based of different target audiences, because when you talk about misinformation, lack of information, we're such a diverse country with such a diverse segmentation of population that you cannot go with one set of information to everyone. So we diversified and we sort of divided every aspect into like different groups, and we worked out on workshops. And what we did differently was that we sort of changed up lyrics of songs. We added musical instruments, we added drama, games, worksheets, videos, and we actually don't go there with the motive of educating them. We go there with a lot of love and empathy. We go there to have fun, and all of us have a lot of fun in those sessions, learn from each other, teach each other. We do not go there to sort of disregard their beliefs or to sort of show them that they don't know anything, but rather we go there with the fact that, hi, we're your friends, we have a bunch of information that might be useful for you. Why don't you try questioning things around you that you've been believing for so long? Which is why we end up after every session making so many friends. And after, all these awareness and educational sessions, we provide them with reusable cloth pads. And these pads are also built by, they have been designed, certified, everything by different women entrepreneurs. And I think that is a very, very sort of a beautiful feeling, to just be able to, try to make the entire conversation more holistic, more inclusive, because it's been far too long that when we talk about menstrual hygiene, we just talk about the product. We don't talk about the awareness. We don't talk about the things that come along with menstruation: cramps, hormonal changes, mood swings. We barely talk about that. So when we go out and when we talk, we also tell them simple asanas that will help release, period cramps, what is the right kind of diet you can have, and everything, and trying making it more inclusive and accepting, and in the process making them feel that, oh, if they can talk about it, so can we. So they go back with the feeling, and we sort of set that chain of conversation, and we try to create that domino effect, because once that starts, it never stops. Once you inculcate and once you teach them something, it passes down orally over the period of, over different generations. And I think that's the beauty of our country. That's exactly what we tap into at Project Vedana. And I'm super excited to, be a part of this change, be a part of this conversation, getting to know everyone here and the beautiful work that they're doing, because we firmly believe that alone we can only do very little, but together we can actually bring about a change. So I think it's high time we banish taboos and not menstruators, and we do not compete and rather collaborate and bring about a beautiful change and create the future of an inclusive and an intersectional period positive society that we all have envisioned. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Srishti. Also, you're doing a great job. It was very creative what you're doing. Please keep up your good work. It was really nice talking to you.
Thank you, ma'am. So now I would like to welcome our next guest speaker, Samia Singhal. Invested in the social sector, Soumya is the founder of Gala Prize. She is building her own NGO to eradicate period poverty and instill legal literacy among women by offering solutions informed by institutional measure and the gaps in their own grounded execution. In her current role as Associate and Coordinator Research and Partnership at SPRF India, her research addresses policy dilemma in geopolitics, foreign policy, and politics of climate change. Previously, she has worked with the International Growth Center at LSE, the Government Outcomes Lab at the University of Oxford, the Association of Asia Scholar, and the Office of MLA Nigong Ring. A graduate in political science from Lady Shri Ram College for Women with a diploma in conflict transformation and peace building, she has published in reputed publications like The Diplomat and The Queen. The stage is your ma'am.
Thank you so much, Megha. Hi, everyone. My name is Samia. And first off, I would like to thank Project Vedana for giving me a platform to talk about not just the work that I do, but also the experiences that I have as a menstruator. And I believe today is a very opportune time for me to talk about menstruation, not just because, well, yesterday was Menstrual Hygiene Day, but also because I am a menstruating menstruator at the moment talking about menstruation, which again brings a whole lot of personality to, well, perhaps taking this conversation forward. But while Megha was talking about my profile, um, what I would like to lay forward is the fact that as someone who is invested in social sector, my understanding of menstruation and menstrual hygiene management also comes from my work in the public policy sector. And what I've realized over the past couple of years of working is the fact that The policy sector and the civil sector and the social sector itself work very closely and interact a lot more than we give them credit for. And it also, this whole idea also lays down the foundation of the idea behind Girl Prize. So I founded Girl Prize in 2019, in October 2019, and in November 2020, we decided that we want to work to eradicate period poverty. In March 2021, on the occasion of International Women's Day, we launched hashtag Spot the Stigma with the twofold objective of providing menstruators with safe products as well as menstrual literacy. And just to give you a little overview of what menstrual hygiene management is, it has three aspects. The first is the access to absorbents and menstrual products. So, pads, cloth pads, cotton pads, cups, tampons, even discs. The second aspect is the access to water, sanitation, and hygiene facilities. So, clean water, toilets, that also comes under menstrual hygiene management. And the last one is menstrual education. Now, when we started hashtag Spot the Stigma, it was imperative that we as an organization did some background study. It was important that we got our facts right. So we did some research, background research through the internet, looked at government reports and other reports, and we found that over 70% menstruators did not know what a period was before their menarche. So you have 12-year-old girls who got their first period and they did not know why was it happening. So again, there was this imminent sense of panic that you're bleeding, you're bleeding from between the legs and you do not know why. And that is that panic actually hits you a lot hard. And we found that when we went on ground and we talked to young girls and we talked to older women, to menstruators from across age groups, and we asked them about their experience of their first period, and the whole the unawareness of it, of the first time it hits you, was a lot larger than anybody would have expected. In addition to this absence of information and knowledge, we also found that 63 million adolescent girls live in houses without toilets. And toilets are very, very important for any menstruator because, well, you need clean water and toilet to in general, but also during your menstruation especially. So what we did was we wanted to target the access to absorbents and the menstrual education part of MHM, or menstrual hygiene management. We raised pads and we raised money, and we tried to ensure that we could we could reach as many menstruators as possible and equip them with safe products to use so that they can have a safe experience. But what was even more important for us as an organization, which Drishti also mentioned, is menstrual education. The fact that menstruators should be aware of what a period is, why do they get it, and also their own bodily cycles. Menstruators and uterus owners, they function on a 28 to 30-day cycle of their body. And there exist different time gaps and there exist different processes within that 28 cycle. And most menstruators and most uterus owners do not know that. And we decided at Girl Prize that we would ensure people knew that. We would ensure that people knew not just the what of things, but also the how and why of things. Because until and unless you have a very rationalized process, and again, a process that is broken down to you, it becomes a little hard to grasp why things are happening and what and how you could actually kind of, or like what could go wrong in during a menstruation. It's important to have a safe menstrual experience, and we wanted to ensure that that happened. Now, again, coming back to the three aspects of MHM, we have government schemes and we have policies in place at the national level and at the state level that address the access to absorbents. What, however, we lack is a comprehensive curriculum for menstruation. Anybody who's been a part of the CBSE system knows that there is a one paragraph in your 10th grade science book that talks about menstruation and the menstrual cycle, the monthly cycle, and that's it. What about the rest? And what we did was, again, we came up with a bunch of modules that talked about different aspects of a menstrual cycle. And what we're trying to do going forward is building resource bank and knowledge bank that could be turned into a curriculum, because it becomes important for menstruators as well as non-menstruators to have information, to be equipped with information, not just because menstruation is a healthcare aspect, but also it can turn into a rights-based conversation. And as youth who are trying to, initiate conversations and just expand the scope of menstrual education through workshops, through nukkar nataks, through peer support groups, it becomes important that while we're creating a safe and empowering space for conversations around menstruation, we also identify why the space in itself is unsafe. A primary reason is taboo, but another primary reason is also misinformation. So it becomes important as a youth change maker that you educate yourself in the first place. How would you pass on information if you are not well aware? That becomes the first step that we need to do as young change makers, as young people trying to initiate conversation, trying to change the course of conversation around menstruation. And while we're doing that, we also need to look at the sociology of menstruation and not just the biology of it. Yeah, I mean, sure, body clocks are important, processes are important, but the fact that there are different traditions attached to menstruation, both good and bad, also need to be rationalized, not just for the underserved community, but also for people who are living in the upper echelons. It's the way we look at conversations around menstruation as a battle to be fought for the underserved. That aspect also needs to be changed in the larger conversation narrative that we're trying to build around menstruation. And when we're talking about menstruation and the sociology of menstruation, we also need to look at the gender aspect of it. The whole idea that women menstruate and men don't, the whole binary of it also needs to be tackled. Drishti also mentioned the fact that they use the word that at her organization they use the word menstruator. That's something that we also do. It is the identification of the fact that gender lies is on a non-binary spectrum, and different gender identities have different experiences with menstruation, but also otherwise. When we see the gender spectrum evolving so much, we should in fact change the course of our own conversation around menstruation to suit that spectrum, to suit that revolution and the evolution. It's also an acknowledgement of diversity in itself, which again is a sign of human evolution and human respect to human experiences. So I see conversations around menstruation being a source of education for everyone that would also trigger the adoption of safe menstrual practices, the adoption of the use of menstrual products because you know better. And I do believe that the youth will play an incredibly important role in being a lobby for better policies and for better practices of menstruation that will affect everyone, be it someone working at Zomato who's getting 2 months of period leave every single month, or be it a woman in bead who has to undergo forced hysterectomies to earn a living without her body coming in the way. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing your wonderful view. Thank you. It was very insightful and very inspiring. Thank you for spreading the awareness about menstruation. Thank you so much, Soumya, for sharing it. So now I would like to welcome our next guest, Ananya. Ananya is the founder, director of Paint It Red. An NGO, Paint It Red works to educate, engage, and empower marginalized community to eliminate period poverty. She holds an undergraduate degree in political science honor and two PG diploma, one in human rights and another in international relations, international law and strategic studies. An inspiring policy practitioner, Ananya is the first Indian recipient of the Fellowship of at Harvard Kennedy School. Ananya has also worked on capacity building through leadership training as the Chief Operating Officer at Citizen for Public Leadership. Under Ananya leadership, Painted Red has made immense contribution to better the menstrual health sector in India by practicing fervent advocacy for MHH right and conducting interactive menstrual health workshop and distribution drive for sustainable menstrual care kits. Her interest in gender politics and equity has also kept her involved in underprivileged girl education and vocational training for over a decade. Welcome, Ananya. Stage is yours.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And I'm so much in awe of the work that both you guys are doing, Soumya and Drishti. I love learning about your work, and I'm hoping to learn more about the other speakers. And I think you all have done a great job of establishing. The importance of looking at menstrual health and hygiene in an intersectional manner. So I'm going to talk a little more about how the youth, since we are talking about young people being involved in this movement, I think one, the panel itself is testament of how young people are taking charge of the tomorrow they wish to see. And I feel that we at Painted Red have only managed to come this far because of the support of young people who are passionate, and for being able to create a little avenue for them to channelize this passion, if I can put it that way. I myself was a political strategist. I had a very lucrative job. That is when I traveled to different parts of the country. I was expected to be on ground, traveling into remote areas. And the one thing that I saw is common. Was menstrual health and hygiene, or rather the lack of it, right? Be it the rural urban divide, be it north south. I lived in 5 different states within 3 years, and I saw that that accessibility, the myths, the conversation around it remained largely the same. And I feel that's what was the cutting edge for me to quit my job and actually start taking action about it. Though I have to admit that when I started, it was more of a personal passion project. It started with a drive to just have conversations and understand that if menstrual cups had changed my life, why can't we look at sustainable alternatives at a larger scale? Since we do keep talking about accessibility, affordability, from the product lens, maybe I could try and see what are the things that are stopping a lot of people coming from socioeconomic backgrounds like ours, as well as those coming from socioeconomic backgrounds which are marginalized, from making this switch. Keeping that in mind, I started having conversations with communities around me, and learned that we cannot have one solution fit all. There are different myths, there are different taboos, there are different cultural and religious backgrounds that dominate one's belief, and therefore we need to be adaptive. It ended up being a huge learning process for me in those 6 months, interacting with others who are working in in this field, to understand where we are all lacking. Where's the gap that exists? Um, but then COVID hit, and I think everything just became tenfold tougher. I started getting calls from a few of the people who I had spoken to in the past 6 months, that they were washing their used napkins, disposable napkins, and drying it because they were that unsure of where they're going to get their next supply. It is usually something that they would buy from a little bit of the money they would save from their ghar kharcha, their monthly expense that is given to them. They would usually save a little bit from that and go to their nearest anganwadi to acquire the cheapest set of pads that they could get. And since they've never had this conversation with the male members of their house, they were extremely unsure of what is waiting for them. I think that's when this initiative became an organization, in a very short period of time, with the help of people who were motivated to understand that there is a lot more than roti kapda makan that needed to be provided during the entire COVID crisis, because we keep forgetting that there is a gender lens that needs to be adopted during when policies are being made. We boast of a parliament at this point of time with 40% women leaders. I question again, where were these women leaders when sanitary napkins were left out of relief material, was left out of essential goods in the first list that came out? Why is it that we had to write letters to the Prime Minister? And why did it take 75 days for it to again go into manufacturing, still leaving a massive gap in the supply and demand of sanitary napkins? Do I still have to remind people that this is not a choice? I wish it was. I wish my periods asked me every month before it turned up. It doesn't. It turns up in whenever it wants to, right? And it turns up for everybody every month. And it is high time that we look at it in a way that is an essential, and it is a basic right that every individual should be entitled to, right? So from that period itself, during this relief work, I realized the power that young people have. I managed to mobilize people who were living in different cities. I was like, okay, I've identified a self-help group that has an existing stock. I've identified communities where we need to get this relief material, but I need y'all to run to these police stations, make them uncomfortable, and fight the fight. Get the movement permission if you have to, and only y'all can do it. Nobody else can. I have gone around waving cloth pads in the face of male policemen who've asked me, "Sarkar nahi kar rahi, to aapko kyun karna hai? If they don't think it's an essential, why do you?" And I would just be like, "Sir, next time I'll tell my parents ki chitti likh ke aaye mujhe." But since that's not how it works, why don't you let me get this out to other communities? And so we had a massive struggle, and everybody in different, and it was not just specific to where I was located, but a lot of young people went out and fought this. They used, and I would say almost to the point of misused, the permissions that maybe their families had of vehicle movements to actually get the product out. And we actually managed to reach um, 11,000 people during the first lockdown. It was something that was unbelievable even for us, and it would not have been possible where movements are restricted. And I keep reminding that it was the lockdown, the first lockdown, and I realized that we need to make sure that everybody who has a drive to do something is given an opportunity to do that. We may come from places of privilege, but as long as that realization exists that yes, our situation is not how our country functions, we should be able to create a space for them to be able to do that. Since then, we have engaged with a lot of colleges and schools to see, and when I say schools, even high school students, it leaves me amazed how even 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds are willing to have this conversation. They are aware that their body and their bodily functions is something they should not be shamed for. And I'm so glad that at such an age, they're willing to do it. Yes, unlike a lot of us who bothered educating ourselves, they might not have the exact know-how. But that's where I think we play a role in ensuring that we can pass on the experiences and the knowledge that we have acquired to them so that they can also become agents of change. When I think of the young youth, I feel they do a tremendous job of breaking the glass ceiling even within their own personal sphere. You don't need to go out and be starting an organization, or you need to be counting the number of people whose lives you've changed. I think this idea of running behind large numbers is something that I think is an outdated concept. We I don't think reaching out to x number of people makes a difference. What I believe is creating real impact can make a difference. And what I mean by that is that even if you can change the mindset of your parents, if you can change the mindset of even one person living around you, or you can create a space for yourself where you didn't have that space, I think you're doing enough in terms of creating a change. So change as an illusion, I think, is being broken by a lot of young people who are happy to create that little ripple from within their own spheres. And I'm there to make sure that all of them can fight that fight. This is where my radical feminist ideologies come out, where I'm just like, everything is political and the personal is definitely political, right? So go do it. Make people uncomfortable, have that conversation in parties with male members if you have to, because they are actually, and you'll be surprised, men in my family were more enthusiastic to learn about painted shred than the women. I could see my aunts squirming in their seat when I'm trying to explain, because they're just like, okay, you're asking for donations for menstrual cup, ye hoti kya cheez hai? Never heard of it. So that's where I'm just like, this is my stage. I launch into this monologue about how what we're doing and why we're doing what we're doing, and I take that opportunity to explain it to anybody who'll hear it. And I can always see the female members getting extremely uncomfortable. It's the menstruators, in fact, who are just like, okay, I spent 40 years with this man without explaining what's happening to me, and suddenly this little young Turk has come and has started doing it. And I'm so glad that I can be that person. So I am somebody who's very proud of making people uncomfortable. I'm very proud of breaking that little idea that, okay, there are certain things that should be spoken about in certain spaces, and I encourage young people to do it. I'm like, no, don't let anybody tell you that this is not the right place to talk about this, because there's always a right place to talk about yourself, your experiences in your body, and nobody should tell you how to do it. So if breaking the silence, I feel these kind of conversations which reach young people, I hope that it inspires them to have these conversations in whichever way they want to. There's no boulder on your shoulder that you need to change the world. Even if you change one person, even if you change yourself, unlearn the things that you've been taught, I think you're doing great. So that this is what I would like to say as an opening remark from my side. And I'm so excited again, once again, to be a part of this. And congratulations to all you guys doing such wonderful work. Asa, we can't hear you again.
Uh, Asta, your voice is not coming still.
Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Right, so I just wanted to thank you, ma'am, for your amazing ideas. Those real change and uncomfortable ideas are really good, especially that policeman moment you had. Uh, so let's go ahead with the next guest we have, Mr. Jonathan Rommel. Jonathan is a 21-year-old from Sri Lanka. He is an activist advocating to end period poverty as well as advocate for mental health and body positivity. Jonathan works as a professional and post-educational content on taboo topics such as period and chooses to educate mostly boys on the complexities and beauty of periods as well as educational content around topics that youth face such as parent-child relationships, body dysmorphia, and mental health. Jonathan organizes sanitary pad drives where they donate pads and they also donate and help menstruators make the switch from conventional pads to reusable or cups and help educate them on the benefits of sustainable period products. He is an active inner cycle member of the International Period Product Company, August, and is part of Sri Lankan based communities and societies. We're really glad to have you, sir. Please say a few words now.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to speak a bit about my experience as a youth activist against period party. And as our wonderful host mentioned, I am from Sri Lanka. And just to give you a bit of context of where I'm from, over here in Sri Lanka, we still have communities that don't have access to period products, that still use leaves, moss, old rags, and these are very unhygienic practices. And we still have students missing out on school because they can't afford period products. We still have an insanely high period tax on the period products that are available. And despite all of this being there, we still have no open conversation about periods in our country, and periods are still a taboo. One of the biggest issues with providing safe periods for everyone is that a majority of the people don't know about period poverty, especially non-menstruators. And a lot of people aren't aware that unsafe periods affects everyone at an economical level, social level, at all levels. And as a young activist, I started with what I could do, and that was creating conversation and creating awareness. But as an administrator, to tackle this issue, I had to educate myself first. And I think that's a great starting point for anyone who wants to be a youth activist, because when you know what you're going to talk about, there is less chance of someone trying to put you down. Just like Miss Ananya said with her story about policemen, I absolutely loved it. When you know what you're talking about, there is no way someone else can put you down. And initially, how I started off was by talking to my friends. Just a bit of context, I go to an all boys school. So, talking to a bit of friends about periods and then telling them, showing them period products and explaining to them how period party affects us all and how it affects communities that they aren't aware of. In Sri Lanka, we have mothers who have to choose between providing food to their family and getting menstrual products. And just like you said, in Sri Lanka, we have mothers and menstruators who go on to reuse their products and sometimes just wouldn't go for their occupations, wouldn't go for school just because they're unable to access it. I then went on to getting into social media, one of the best tools we as youth have to spread this news. We started doing educational content, hosting webinars for schools, and trying to get the younger generation more involved in this. Because I believe right now, even in Sri Lanka and India, there are a lot of cultural issues that are very deep rooted into the older generation. And it takes a bit of time for them to unlearn and to let go of some of the things they've been taught as kids. So what we like to do is we organize webinars and we organize just fun interactive sessions where we teach menstruators and non-menstruators what the period products are. We show them tampons, we show them pads, we show them period cup, and we teach them how it works, how you use it. Because I think everybody needs to understand the beauty of periods and respect periods. And that's how I've been advocating to remove stigma of periods here. And I play a small part in making a change, but the impact of this change resonates so much within me. When I see girls and menstruators that have done their high school O levels or they've done their grade 5 scholarships. And these were people who didn't go to school or their parents didn't send them to school because of issues such as not being able to afford period products and cultural issues as well. And I think what I would like to tell you guys and everyone listening on today, via my experience as well, is start now in any way that you can. It doesn't matter how big or small, like Amanda said, just start having conversations, start volunteering, do whatever you can. Because often we don't realize the impact a small conversation can have and how you taking that first step can inspire your friends, it can inspire your families to start advocating for safe periods, and it also starts bringing back periods into an open conversation. As youth, I believe we are change makers, and any change we want to see in the world tomorrow starts with us today. And sometimes your small actions can leave huge impacts. And I'm certain there are a lot of young change makers listening on today. This has been my few minutes, and my name is Jonathan, and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really insightful, and you're doing a great job. Please keep doing it. Now we have another guest with us, Chitransh Saxena, the founder of My Pad Bank. Chitransh Saxena is a social worker and an MHM advocate working towards SDG 6. He has completed an MSW in medical and psychiatry specialization and has conducted over 50 plus workshops for a community of over 10,000 women and adolescent girls on menstrual health awareness as an MHM social activist. He has achieved the he has achieved the Incubator World Record for being the largest sanitary pad at 22 feet. He has also been honored with the Current Nature Award for his social work. His organization, My Pad Bank, works in the area of creating and raising awareness on sustainable menstrual hygiene. Chitrash is also associated with the Teaching Shakti program of the UP government as a mental social worker. Stage is yours.
Okay, so very good evening to all, and happy Menstrual Hygiene Day to each and everyone, like to all the menstruators. Even okay, so let me start with this. So there is a shloka in which is related to Kamakhya Devi Mandir. Kamakhya Varde Devi, Neel Parvate Vasini, Tvam Devi Jagat Mata, Yoni Mudre Namostute. So Yoni Mudra Namostute is a gesture of like Namaste in Yoni Mudra. Yoni Mudra is a yoga posture which help in menstrual cramps, dysmenorrhea, menstrual pain, these kinds of menstrual issues. So Yoni Mudra is like this. Let me figure it out. Okay, so we need to cross our fingers like this and make a yoni pose. It is like this. Sorry, बस मेरे को थोड़ा सा time लगा है. So this is yoni mudra, and by doing this, like female can get relief on in their dysmenorrhea and their PCOS, PCODs, and like other menstrual problems. So okay, now I'm starting my story. So during my college days, when I was in graduation in 2018, so the route from my home to my college, and there are some slums are over there in the route. कुछ slums वहाँ पर होते थे, and कुछ काम के लिए मैं एक बार उनके पास में गया just for a knife. They are basically बंजारा community. तो बंजारा community के जो होते हैं, hello, I'm audible?
Yes, sir, yeah.
ओके, सो बेसिकली जो बंजारा कम्युनिटी के लोग होते हैं, तो वो आयरन स्मिथ होते हैं, कुछ आयरन से रिलेटेड वर्क करते हैं. एंड उनके पास जब मैं गया था अब एक काम के लिए, तो दे आर चार्जिंग ओनली 10 to 15 रुपीज। एंड वहां पर मेरे मन में एक थॉट आया, दे आर चार्जिंग ओनली 10 to 15 रुपीज एंड हाउ दे आर सर्वाइविंग। ये कैसे अपने फैमिली को लाइक सर्वाइव करते होंगे, कैसे उनके जो भी डेली रूटीन होते हैं उनको कैसे कंप्लीट करते होंगे। तो जस्ट वन ऑफ माय हॉबी इज इंटरेक्टिंग विद पर्सन्स। मेरा कुछ जहां पर भी मैं होता हूँ आसपास के लोगों के साथ एक इंटरेक्शन में बनाते हुए बात करता हूँ। So I saw that he is having 3 or 4 girls in his family and 2, 3 or more child. So like एक प्रॉब्लम ये भी है कुछ अंडर प्रिविलेज एरिया वालों के साथ में, दे आर नॉट गिविंग प्रायोरिटी टू जेंडर इक्वलिटी। उनकी जब 3, 4 लड़कियां हैं उनकी फैमिली प्लानिंग तब तक चलती है जब तक उनके घर में एक मेल मेंबर या एक उनका ऐसा ना हो कि उनके घर में एक जो उनके वंश को आगे बढ़ाए, जो उनकी फैमिली है उनको कोई आगे बढ़ाने के लिए दे आर लुकिंग फॉर अ गाय, एक लड़का बेबी बॉय होना चाहिए। तो उनकी 4 बेटी थी, 4 4 डॉटर्स उनकी थी। तो आई वाज जस्ट हैविंग अ कन्वर्सेशन। मैंने पूछा उनसे कि आप कैसे चलाते हो, मतलब आपके घर में 4 बेटी हैं और ये हैं। तो उनका बस ये था कि हाँ हम लोगों का हो जाता है। उस समय मैंने नहीं पूछा, आई वाज इन सम ट्रबल आल्सो। मैं मेरे को ये था कि कैसे मैं उनसे स्टार्ट करूंगा ये कन्वर्सेशन। बट कहीं ना कहीं मेरे दिमाग में था कि उनकी फीमेल उनकी वाइफ हो गई और उनकी जो 4 बेटियां हैं उनके लिए वो मेंस्ट्रुअल हाइजीन को लेकर के वो अपनी प्रैक्टिसेस कैसे करते होंगे, या जिसके लिए शायद एजुकेशन नेसेसरी नहीं है, जिसके लिए न्यूट्रिशन नेसेसरी नहीं है, वो मेंस्ट्रुअल हाइजीन को कैसे इंपॉर्टेंस देता है। वो थॉट मेरे माइंड में क्लिक कर रहा था एंड आई वाज जस्ट लुकिंग कि कैसे इनके लिए ये फिगर आउट करूं, कैसे वर्क स्टार्ट करूं। सो वन ऑफ माय friend is a doctor. So she that time she was also in their like final year of her MBBS. So I just asked her, I said, sir, just देखो एक ऐसी ऐसी फैमिली है एंड उनके लिए आई नीड टू डू समथिंग। फेड बैंक जब स्टार्ट करा था तो ओनली 11 फैमिलीज आर इन फ्रंट ऑफ मी। मेरे को सिर्फ ये था कि मैं 11 फैमिलीज को मैं अडॉप्ट कर लेता हूँ, इनके लिए मैं मेंस्ट्रुअल हाइजीन प्रोडक्ट का एसेसिबिलिटी करवा देता हूँ। एंड दैट वाज अ ग्रेट सपोर्ट फ्रॉम ऑल माय फ्रेंड्स एंड माय नेबर्स, माय टीचर्स, और जो भी मेरे सराउंडिंग में पीपल होते हैं, कई नए लोग भी मेरे से एडेड हुए। तो 11 लोगों को मैं स्टार्टिंग में मेंस्ट्रुअल हाइजीन प्रोडक्ट सप्लाई करे थे, उनको अपनी तरफ से डोनेट करे थे। एंड जब मैंने सोशल मीडिया पे अपने पोस्ट करा था और सब चीजें सब जगह बताने लगा, तो लाइक नाउ वी आर गिविंग 180 गर्ल्स पर मंथ। एंड ऑल्सो लाइक मैंने मल्टीपल प्लेसेस पे भी सेशन किए हैं। एंड इवन सबसे इंटरेस्टिंग चीज ये कि जब हम लोग स्कूल्स में एंटर हम लोगों ने करा, शायद रूरल एरिया में हम लोगों को बताना इजी था वहां पर हम लोगों की सेशंस, क्योंकि हम लोग डायरेक्ट हम लोग बता रहे थे। बट अगर स्कूल में हमें बताना है तो स्कूल में वी नीड टू टेक अ परमिशन फ्रॉम प्रिंसिपल और स्कूल अथॉरिटीज। तो स्कूल वालों ने कई बार लाइक उनको परेशानी हुई कि ये आप कैसा टॉपिक लेकर के स्टार्ट करने जा रहे हैं। 2 3 स्कूलों में हम लोगों ने स्टार्ट करा, सेशन वाज वेरी गुड और काफी अच्छा रिस्पॉन्स मिला स्टूडेंट्स की साइड से भी। देन वी मूव टू हम लोगों ने उसके बाद में मूव करा, हम लोगों ने स्टार्ट करा बॉयज ओनली स्कूल्स में भी। हम लोगों ने कुछ कोएड में हम लोगों ने कर चुके थे, हम लोग ओनली गर्ल्स में कर चुके थे। बट अब हमारे लिए एक टास्क था कि हम ओनली बॉयज स्कूल में एंटर करें। हम लोगों ने 5 + 5 to 8 स्कूल हमने ओनली बॉयज स्कूल में हम लोगों ने सेशन करे हैं। तो वहां पर जब हमारा प्रिंसिपल के साथ इंटरेक्शन था, फर्स्ट 5 to 10 मिनट्स बहुत हार्ड गए थे। लाइक लोगों के साथ में इंटरेक्ट करना बड़ा हार्ड हो रहा था। इवन प्रिंसिपल वाज लाइक दिस कि हमारे कोई फीमेल नहीं है, आप कैसे ये चीज स्टार्ट करोगे। तो एक हम लोगों का जो वहां पर उनको इंटरेक्ट करने के लिए हमने जब उनको बताया कि शायद आपके स्कूल में फीमेल नहीं है बट आपके यहाँ के जो स्टूडेंट्स हैं इनके फ्रेंड्स होते हैं, इनकी बहन होती है, इनकी मदर होती है, इनकी गर्लफ्रेंड्स होती हैं। तो लाइक प्रिंसिपल वाज लाइक नो, हमारे यहाँ के बच्चों की गर्लफ्रेंड्स हो ही नहीं सकती। तो आई वाज लाइक नहीं, ओके, इट डजंट मीन कि हम रिलेशन की बात कर रहे हैं या किसी और चीज की बात कर रहे हैं। बट अगर 10 + 2 के स्टूडेंट्स हैं या 10th के स्टूडेंट्स हैं तो उनकी सराउंडिंग में फीमेल्स, मल्टीपल फीमेल्स होती हैं। तो अगर वो उन्हें पता होगा कि क्या चीज इंपॉर्टेंट है तो वो अपने सराउंडिंग फीमेल्स को अनकंफर्टेबल नहीं होने देंगे, तो एक उनके लिए कंफर्ट जोन प्रिपेयर करेंगे। और अगर कहीं पर कोई ऐसी फीमेल होती है जिसको शायद नीड हो, तो उनसे वो बोलने में, या कोई फीमेल अपने मेल बेस्ट फ्रेंड से बोलने में उसको अनकंफर्टेबल नहीं महसूस होगा। सो मैं हमेशा की तरह मैं आपको आज भी बताऊं, राइट नाउ आई एम ट्रैवलिंग इन लाइक मैं कहीं पर हूं अभी। और मेरे साथ एक मेरे को लाइन मेरी भी ऊपर बनी हुई भी है कि माँ बहन बेटियों की परवाह मैं करता हूँ, लड़का हूँ, बैग में पैड रखता हूँ। आई एम ऑलवेज कैरिंग अ 2 पैड ऑफ इन माई बैग। और लाइक मेरे स्कूल की डेज की भी मैं बताऊं, स्कूल डेज में क्या हुआ था, व्हेन आई वाज इन 9th और 10th स्टैंडर्ड। तो एक एक बार मैंने किसी अपनी फीमेल फ्रेंड के बैग में हाथ डाला था, कुछ शायद पेन ड्राइव या किसी चीज के लिए, एंड शी वाज लाइक नहीं, मुझे बता देते, मैं निकाल देती, जस्ट बिकॉज फीमेल के बैग में हाथ नहीं डालते हैं। तो दैट टाइम देयर वाज अ क्वेश्चन मार्क इन माय हेड। मैं बस यही सोच रहा कि ऐसा क्यों होता है कि फीमेल के बैग में हाथ क्यों नहीं डालते हैं। तो कहीं ना कहीं वो एक क्वेश्चन काफी टाइम बाद उसको क्वेरी मिला, एक आंसर मिला, क्यों, क्योंकि लड़कियों के बैग में शायद पैड हो सकता है, इसलिए उनके बैग में हाथ नहीं डालती। तो आई वाज लाइक कि हाँ, इट्स वेरी नॉर्मल, सभी मेंस्ट्रुएट करते हैं, मेंस्ट्रुअल हाइजीन के लिए सबका एक राइट है, मैं अपना प्रॉपर मेंस्ट्रुअल हाइजीन का प्रोडक्ट अपने लिए चूज करना। तो फिर इसको ऐसे क्यों करते हैं? बॉयज के बैग में भी कई चीज ऐसी होती हैं जो शायद कॉमन भी होती हैं हमारे बैग में, जैसे अगर मेडिसिन हो गई, या गर्ल्स के बैग में अगर मेडिसिन हो गई, सेरेडॉन रखती है, तो उसको अगर वो लेकर के अनकंफर्टेबल नहीं महसूस कर रही है, तो एक मेंस्ट्रुअल हाइजीन प्रोडक्ट को लेकर के इतना अनहाइजेनिक, वो सॉरी, इतना अनकंफर्टेबल क्यों हो जाते हैं? तो ये सब स्टिग्मास थे, ये सब ऐसे इश्यूज हैं जिनको शायद ये पर्सनल नहीं होने चाहिए, या ऐसे नहीं है, ये सोशल बाउंड्रीज की वजह से ऐसा बन चुकी हैं, क्योंकि शायद हम ही लोग ऐसे हैं कि हम लोग उस बारे में इतना बात नहीं करते हैं, या अगर कोई बात कर रहा होता है, या शायद लाइक लास्ट 2-3 इयर्स थोड़ा कॉमन हुआ है, बट उससे पहले अगर टीवी पे भी ऐड आ रहे होते थे पीरियड्स के, तो पीपल आर लाइक स्विचिंग देयर न्यूज चैनल, और ये सब चीजें होती थी। इवन मैं बताऊं, शायद पीरियड का ब्लड रेड है, और रेड को शो करने में इतना उन लोगों को दिक्कत होती थी कि इसलिए जितने भी मेंस्ट्रुअल हाइजीन के प्रोडक्ट्स के ऐड आते हैं उसमें वो ब्लू इंक दिखाते हैं। तो दीज आर द स्टिग्मा कि वो लोग कैसे उसको मैनिपुलेट कर रहे हैं, और जब जो सेल कर रहा है, जो प्रोडक्ट का मैन्युफैक्चरर है, जो एडवर्टीजमेंट है, वही लोग अगर इन चीजों को इतना लाइक हाइड करते हुए अगर बात करेंगे या दिखाएंगे, तो सामने वाला कैसे अनकंफर्टेबल हो सकता है, और टॉपिक कैसे कॉमन हो सकता है। तो एक शायद आप लोग सभी जानते होंगे महावारी के बारे में, जो पीरियड्स के बाद से रिलेटेड एक जो टेम्पल है, कामाख्या देवी टेम्पल। मैं जस्ट एक थोड़ा सा आप लोगों से भी इंटरेक्शन चाहूंगा, जो लोग को पता है जस्ट एक मेरे को हाथ ऐसे करके करेंगे तो मुझे पता चलेगा कि हाँ, आप लोगों को पता है कामाख्या देवी मंदिर के बारे में। अभी आप लोगों में से कितने लोगों को पता है? ओके, सो कामाख्या देवी मंदिर गुवाहाटी का एक टेम्पल है। मैंने जैसे जो रूरल एरियाज में जब मैंने अपने सेशंस लिए हैं, शायद आप लोगों को भी पता है, जब हम रूरल एरिया के लोगों के साथ में इंटरेक्ट करते हैं तो वो मेडिकल टर्म्स और वो हाई हाई टर्म्स के साथ से ज्यादा वो ग्राउंड लेवल से जल्दी कनेक्ट होते हैं। तो उनको अभी तक ये पता है कि पीरियड्स के टाइम पे हम पूजा नहीं कर सकते हैं, पीरियड्स के टाइम पे किचन नहीं जाते हैं, जो बेसिक में सब जगह अराउंड ये बने हुए हैं। जब उनको हम बताते हैं, इन चीजों को क्लियर करते हैं, जैसे मैंने ऋग्वेद में पढ़ा है, ऋग्वेद में मेंशन है कि हम मंदिर क्यों नहीं जाते थे उस समय, या फिर हम किचन में क्यों नहीं जाते थे। बेसिकली क्या है, मेंसेस के टाइम पे पहले रेस्ट के लिए बोला जाता था, मेंस्ट्रुअल हाइजीन प्रोडक्ट्स नहीं होते थे, और आग के पास में बेसिकली जहाँ ज्यादा गर्म होता था उस जगह मना करते थे। पहले के टाइम पे किचन में आप लोगों को पता है कि ना इंडक्शन होते थे, ना फिर गैस होता था, दे आर कुकिंग बाय देयर लाइक चूल्हा जो होता था, लकड़ियां जला करके खाना बनता था। तो जब किचन में लकड़ियां जला करके खाना बनाया जा रहा है, वहां पर बहुत हीट अप होता था, तो वो किसी फीमेल को दिक्कत ना हो, इसीलिए बोला जाता था कि मेंसेस के टाइम पे वो रेस्ट करे, वो किचन में ना जाए। या अगर मंदिर की बात करें, मंदिर जैसे सीढ़ियां हो गई, या फिर मंदिर में भी हवन होते थे पहले। अब मंदिरों में इतना हवन रेगुलर बेसिस पे नहीं होते, बट पहले हवन होते थे। तो ऋग्वेद में मेंशन है कि किचन में और उसमें मंदिर में यज्ञ की वजह से या हाई फ्लेम की वजह से मना करा जाता था। बट हमारा जो उस समय जो हमारा कल्चर था, वो शायद इतना मॉडर्न एजुकेटेड नहीं था, बट उनके पास में साइंटिफिक फैक्ट थे। बट हमारा जो अब आज का टाइम है, ये वेल मॉडर्न है, टर्म्स बहुत हैं, साइंटिफिक हैं, बट क्या है, हम लोगों ने पूरा ट्विस्ट करके सर्व करा है अपनी कम्युनिटी को, अपनी जनरेशन को। तो हम लोगों ने उनको जो टर्म था कि मंदिर नहीं जाना है या किचन में नहीं जाना है, वो तो हम लोगों ने सर्व करा, बट क्यों नहीं जाना है उसका साइंटिफिक रीजन नहीं पता है। इसी वजह से आजकल ज्यादातर लोगों को लगता है कि ये सब किसी शायद अशुद्धि की वजह से, इम्प्योरिटी की वजह से ऐसा होता है, बट ऐसा नहीं था। वो जो इसके साइंटिफिक रीजन थे वो मैंने आपको बताया। ऑल्सो जब उनको हम रूरल एरिया को या अंडर प्रिविलेज को जब हम कामाख्या देवी टेम्पल के बारे में बताते हैं, तब वो कनेक्ट अच्छे से होते हैं। कामाख्या देवी टेम्पल है जो वो गॉडेस कामाख्या का है। कामाख्या में योनि द्वार बना हुआ है, कहते हैं जो सती माता थी उनके जो 51 पार्ट थे, तो उसमें एक पार्ट गुवाहाटी में आया था। कामाख्या देवी मंदिर पीरियड्स के लिए फेमस है, और वहां पर कहते हैं जो 3 दिन जून में 3 दिन के लिए वो मंदिर के जो गेट होते हैं वो बंद करे जाते हैं, वहां पर व्हाइट कपड़ा पूरे में बिछाया जाता है। 3 दिन के बाद में जब वो डोर ओपन होते हैं तो वो कपड़ा जो होता है वो रेड होता है। तो वो डेडिकेट करता है, या वो एक बिलीव है वहाँ के लोगों का कि जो कपड़ा रेड होता है वो गॉडेस कामाख्या का महा जो पीरियड ब्लड होता है वो उससे रेड होता है। तो दीज आर द लाइक ये कुछ रीजंस है जिनसे हम, या ये एक ऐसे कुछ फैक्ट हैं जिनसे हम लोगों को कनेक्ट कर पाते हैं कि मेंस्ट्रुअल हाइजीन या मेंस्ट्रुएशन कितना कॉमन है, या कितना एक नॉर्मल टॉपिक है लोगों के लिए। इस तरह से हम लोगों के बीच में पब्लिक लाइक स्ट्रीट प्लेस हो गए, या उनके बीच में फैक्ट हो गए, यहाँ से हम लोगों ने मेंसेस को और टैबू ब्रेक करने के हम लोगों ने सेशन क्रिएट करे। एक जो आपने अभी इन्होंने बताया था कि हम लोगों ने 22 फीट का सैनिटरी नैपकिन डिजाइन करा था, दैट वाज इन द 6th मंथ ऑफ लाइक स्टार्टिंग आवर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन। मैंने जून 2018 में अपना ऑर्गेनाइजेशन स्टार्ट करा था, एंड दिसंबर तक मेरे पास जितने भी डोनेटेड पैड कलेक्ट हुए, तो मेरे को ये था कि एक पब्लिक एरिया पे अगर इतने सारे पैड एक साथ कलेक्ट होंगे, क्योंकि जनरली क्या होता है लोग हाइड करके या बैग में या फिर बैग को रैप करके लेके जाते हैं। तो मेरे को ये था कि हम एक पब्लिक एरिया में, एक ग्राउंड में अगर हम इतने सारे पैड्स लेकर के कुछ वर्क करेंगे तो लोगों का इंटरेक्शन या लोगों का रिएक्शंस कैसे होते हैं। तो वी आर हैविंग दैट टाइम वी हैव 1700 सैनिटरी नैपकिन पैकेट। तो वहां पर हम लोगों ने एक बड़े से पैड की शेप में सारे पैड अरेंज करे, सब वहां पर लगाए, और 22 फीट का एक पैड बना था। और वाइल मेकिंग जस्ट हम लोगों ने हाफ ही बनाना शुरू करा था। वहां पे जो पब्लिक थी, पहले तो वो लोग देखते रह गए कि इतने सारे पैड एक ही प्लेस पर ओपन हो रहे हैं और लोग कैसे कर रहे हैं। फिर वहां पर कुछ 75 और 80 ईयर्स ओल्ड के जो अंकल होंगे जो जॉगिंग के लिए आए होंगे उस पार्क में, वो लोगों ने भी ज्वाइन करा हमारे इवेंट, और काफी लोगों ने वो बनाने में हेल्प करी, एंड वी गॉट लिम्का बुक ऑफ रिकॉर्ड फॉर दैट। तो जस्ट मैंने एक चीज ये देखी कि अगर हम जब तक किसी चीज के बारे में बात नहीं करते हैं, किसी चीज को हम बोलते नहीं, तब तक वो एक टैबू रहता है। जहां हम लोग कोई एक टॉपिक या कोई भी चीज बात करना शुरू कर देते हैं वो कॉमन होता है। और सबसे बड़ी चीज होती है कंफर्टेबिलिटी। अगर आपके साथ वाला कंफर्टेबल है तो वो टैबू या वो कोई चीज नहीं रहेगी और एक जनरल टॉपिक रह जाता है।
Right,
या
sir. That's so rightly said by you. So let's move on, and we're running short of time. So let's move on with our questions. So my first question is from Ananya. So, ma'am, since you are a menstrual rights advocate and have worked immensely for this cause, how do you envision the situation becoming better? How does the world look like in the next 10 to 15 years with regard to menstrual health and hygiene?
Wow, that's a complicated question, but I'll tell you that there are two approaches to this, right? There's one where I want to see how things are going to be in the next 10 to 15 years, and then the practical side of what I actually see will happen, right? So I'll tell you a little bit about both of it. While I would want that menstrual health is considered a basic human right and a fundamental right, where it is not only looked at from a product perspective, but looked in a holistic manner, starting all the way from schools, going all the way, including private players and non-private players. We have a huge work cut out for ourselves, right? From as Soumya was mentioning, that it should include wash facilities, it should include people from different genders. I would love, and of course, people with different abilities, right? We keep forgetting that when we are talking about menstruators, not everybody is a cis-bodied, able-bodied person. So I would want to see and hope that in the next 10 to 15 years we are aware of the fact that it's not just a product based approach that can be taken, but a human rights approach that needs to be taken. However, as a realistic person who's been on ground enough now to know that this is far from reality, I would say that in the next 10 to 15 years, even if we manage to make sure that accessible, qualitative products is accessible without taxation, for free would be ideal, and that it can be incorporated. Menstrual education and sexual and reproductive rights education is incorporated into our conversation starting from as early as age 8. I think we would have also made a stride forward. This is also a good time to talk about menstrual leave as a public optional leave that should exist. It is a very large topic, so I will just keep it extremely brief because there are a lot of pros and cons to menstrual leaves. But in a country like ours, it definitely is a way forward in at least starting the conversation, in at least creating an option for all genders to be able to take that time off. for people, and especially for non-binary menstruators who are not cisgendered. They need that time off because it can be very difficult to manage their periods in spaces which is not inclusive. However, menstrual leaves also come with the caveat that it helps a lot of people absorb themselves of the greater responsibility that they have towards society. But coming back to your original question, in the next 10 to 15 years, well, ideally, I hope we cease to exist as an organization so that that issue is completely eradicated. I know it's not going to happen, but in all practicality, let's hope that we have some women leaders, some menstruating leaders who actually ensure that there is at least a few things, be it product based, be it education based, or be it about creating inclusive spaces and wash facilities, that there is at least a step forward towards this larger goal that we all on this panel are striving for. So while that question is extremely large, I think this is my brief answer for what I'm hoping will happen in the next 10 to 15 years.
Right, ma'am, that's so true. And I hope this happens. Now my next question is to Jonathan. Sir, since you educate boys about the complexities and beauty of periods, why did you think it was necessary to educate boys? Because since like everybody said that they don't use the word menstruator, they still think that it is a female topic. So what are the things that kept you motivated, and how did you overcome these challenges?
Well, personally, I started focusing on that category more because I realized people who menstruate understand that there is the problem and they want change to happen. But for collective change to happen, you need allies and support of people that don't menstruate as well. And by informing and educating people who are able to make policy changes and people who are able to support people bringing forward policy changes, I think is a good reason to teach non-menstruators, teach boys, teach everyone, to be honest, about periods, because this is a biological process that's been there since the start of man. And it's really funny how that we only have that education being taught to only the people that menstruate, and even that at a very late age. I believe we need to teach everyone at a young age itself about periods and about period poverty and its effects on all of us. But yeah.
Right, that was very true. My next question is from from Soumya ma'am. Ma'am, since you are working in the social sector, what role do you think the social sector plays to create awareness about this issue, and how can social sector can go about it?
Um, Thank you for the question, Astha. So, the social sector has always been, and the civil society in general, has always been very instrumental in bridging the gap between people, especially the underserved, and the institutional and policy apparatus. It's really very helpful in creating a network of those who have excess of things versus those who have in access of things, which is also how crowdfunders and donation drives work. An organization, a social sector organization comes in, gets in touch with people who can give money, who can give, say, pads in this case, or any other menstrual product for that matter, and they get those resources and those people in touch with other underserved people who do not have access to the same amount of, say, funds to act to buy period products or period products themselves. And that, I guess, is a crucial role that the social sector will play in resource allocation, creating a parallel system that would help in resource allocation so that everyone has access to products, to education again, so that they can have a safe experience. And it also brings me to the second role that the social sector can play when it comes to better just a safer period for menstruators, education and literacy. It's about unlearning and learning about what periods are, the process behind it, and finding ways of disseminating that information. Because again, experiences of menstruation are not same across communities, across genders, across abilities. Ananya brought out the issue of differently abled people and their experiences as menstruators. Drishti and I talked about the non-binary aspect of menstruation, and becomes important that the social sector, whenever and however it's working to enable a safer period, it takes into account the different context context it's working in, because the same piece of information might work really well in an urban setting, in a cis-het urban setting, while it might not work again in a cis-het rural setting or even a semi-rural setting. The whole idea of evolving and adapting to different needs of your beneficiaries, and having again a community-centric approach to bettering menstrual hygiene management practices and policies and the narratives itself is something that becomes extremely important um, for the social sector to take up. And the first step for that, again, I'll mention, will be unlearning and then learning. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. This was really insightful. Now I would like to ask a question from Dishti. Dishti, ma'am, since you are just 20 and have done so much, you have literally proved that age is not an obstacle if you are passionate about bringing a change. My question to you is, what challenges did you face in your journey and how did you overcome them?
I do think, first thing, challenges and struggles are, I think, a very important part if you are, trying to do something. I mean, whatever, even if it's like preparing for an exam. So I don't really look at them as obstacles, but rather look at them as very important learning points and constantly opportunities to learn. Um, Secondly, I think us being young, or me being 20, I think that's the biggest strength, because you know the power of the youth is again a lot undervalued right now. If we are asked at any given point, and this is what we specialize in Kadira, at any given point in time, if we get a call from any state, or we have a collaboration in any state, we are able to set up a local workforce task force there within 24 hours. Within the next 1 week, they're completely trained to take sessions, and they're all ready to go. So I don't think I've I haven't seen or faced any challenges, being very honest about it, because people around me have been very supportive, have been very understanding, and I come from a place of a lot of privilege, and I do accept, understand that, and which is why I think it becomes a very, very important responsibility to sort of create such a space for everyone else. And initially, I think a couple of remarks that came in when we started off, they were like, "Acha, theek hai, bachcho ka project hai, might not last 1 week, 2 week top max." And I think we're nearing 2 week completion of 2 years, and we just continue to go forward.
Thank you very much, ma'am. This was really insightful. My last question from Jonathan sir, what are some of the methods that you think people can use to create more awareness about this issue? Also, what are the learnings about from your work in Sri Lanka do you think that are applicable in the Indian context, and what message would you like to give to the young minds like us to motivate them?
So that was a lot of questions, but I think most of the things that I think both our countries share a lot of similarities when it comes to period party and actions towards period party. And I think one of the key ways that we are able to create more awareness is by giving platforms and giving opportunities for the youth, such as the panelists here, who have been absolutely amazing at what they do and have been real examples and inspirations to a lot of people. And more actionable things we can start doing is to start having more conversations in a small community, in the sense where you start making conversations, you start creating small communities and small spaces where you're able to become a place where you educate others on safe periods, as well as a place for people to come to when you need to have a safe place. And with these small communities, you're going to be able to create awareness and create actionable change in policies, and really pressure those in power to start enforcing change and accepting change. In terms of learnings from my work that are applicable in the Indian context, I think everything I do is 100% applicable. Anyone that has access to social media and has access to a device will be able to get into creating content, creating awareness on this issue. And I think it's something that youth today can really get into and start doing and working in. As far as advice, I think to everyone listening in, if you've listened in and you stayed on for this long, I think you're definitely serious about making change. And my advice is to do it. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy. I'm not going to say everyone is going to listen to you, but you have the power to create change and be an example. At the end of the day, I believe that you and I are all just a small link in the greater chain of change. And everything we do, like Ananya said, has a ripple effect. And so you taking that step and you using the resources you have is a great opportunity. And it's an opportunity not a lot of girls, not a lot of menstruators have. And I think we should do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So, since we are running out of time, would like to wind up this very soon and last ask one question. So, my last question to you, Drishti ma'am, is: do you think youth, specifically teenagers, should talk about menstruation? If yes, how and what kind of conversations should they be having?
Okay, this is a very interesting question. Not just youth, everyone and anyone should be able to comfortably and openly talk about menstruation. What kind of conversation then again depends on where you are from. Say, for example, if you are from an extremely privileged community and go to the best of the schools, then I think your conversation should more be around advocating the fact that menstrual hygiene products should be available in restrooms and not your infirmaries. If you are in sort of working in private jobs, then I think your advocacy should be having separate menstrual leaves and not adding them into the medical leave category. Because if you do in both of the cases, if you go for infirmary or per se, if you talk about having them as medical leaves, then that implies that you are sick or something is not fine with your body, whereas menstruation is the most normal thing. If you are coming from a rural community, you can start with having an open conversation with your mother, brother, sister, anyone around you. And if you know what menstruation is, how that happens, just start talking about it, start talking about the importance of using the products. And different kinds of products is a conversation that is equally as important, where if you were informed enough, you should like open up that conversation where people, if they don't know about different kinds of menstrual hygiene products, are aware, and then they can make that sort of a choice. So I think these are a couple of conversations that anyone and everyone can have.
That's so rightly said. So now we have Divyanshi with us. Divyanshi was an article writing participant, competition participant, and she was shortlisted in the top 20 list.
Divyanshi is a very talented girl, and she has been shortlisted in the article writing competition. So I request Divyanshi to please speak something about her article.
Hello everyone. First of all, thank you so much Team Vedna for giving us this opportunity to speak about sanitary pads and its influence on the environment, because most of the people are not even aware about its influence. So I'll tell you how it all started. The other day I was talking to my mom and she told me when she was younger, she had no other choice but to use clothes during her period. After some time pads were introduced, people gradually gained access to them, and now they are one of the essential products for female. And I was thinking how fortunate we are that we don't have to deal with stink or leakage issues. The pads are comfortable to wear, etc. But a few days back, I heard about the article writing competition of Project Vedana, and there was one topic in it: periods and environment. I found it very interesting. I searched upon it and later realized how harmful pads are to the environment. In my research, I found out there are 121 million women who use sanitary napkins, and if each woman uses 8 pads per menstrual cycle, it amounts to 1 billion pads each month and 12 billion annually. So where are these 12 billion pads are being thrown away? Also, 28% disposed of along with routine waste, 28% disposed in the open, 33% buried, and 28% burned in the open. Also, it can take up to 250 to 800 years for a single non-organic sanitary pad to degrade, or it can never decompose at all. The vast majority of women are not aware that sanitary napkins are composed of 90% plastic and that their use contributes to global problem of plastic pollution. Then what we can do to manage the crisis? During my research, I have realized that it's in our hand to manage the crisis by shifting to green menstruation, that is using menstrual cups, cotton-based pads, etc. These options are good for the environment, the wallet, and the woman's reproductive and vaginal health because one menstrual cup or five reusable cotton pads can cover 12 periods. I feel that now is the perfect time to educate women about their menstrual hygiene and the products they use. And conferences like this are the best way to educate them. And it's my honor to be a part of such conference. And it's a really great feeling to contribute in Project Vedna in any way. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Divyanshi. So now, since we are running short of time, let's just end this conversation. And now I would like Samiksha to present the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. It gives me immense pleasure to deliver vote of thanks to all dignitaries and renowned speakers present here, who, despite their busy schedule, have found time to grace this event. I would like to thank Drishti Makhanji, Samia Singhal, Ananya Chaucharia, and Jonathan Rommel for your words of encouragement. We really loved listening to each one of you. All of you were very inspiring throughout the session. Last but not the least, I am thanking our viewers, organizing team members, anchors, and volunteers for their contribution in this event. All of you worked so hard for this conference. I now announce the session to be over, and we will be starting another session, that is a valedictory session. In our next session, we will be listening to Pavi Kulshrestha. Once again, I thank all the guest speakers for motivating and inspiring us. And last but not the least, I would like to thank and congratulate our hosts for the successful completion of the panel, that is role of youth in changing the conversation around the menstruation. Thank you and wishing you all a very good day ahead.
Thank you, Samiksha. Thank you so much, everybody, all the guests and Divyanshi for joining us today. It was really inspiring, and I hope you had a great time. So, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
us.
much.
everyone.
Thank you for having me. Bye bye.